Hey everyone, Sajeel Qureshi here with another episode of RevOps 500. Today I'm super stoked to be talking to the greatest of all time from Lithuania, Vladislav German, one of the greatest HubSpot consultants you'll ever see from there. Welcome to RevOps 500, sir.
Yeah. Hi. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. Such an intro.
Hey, is,
Um,
is, is it the reality or is it not the reality?
well, actually, in fact, in Lithuania, I probably could be the greatest because there are not many in general HubSpot partners in Lithuania.
Hey, whatever
So
the reason is,
yeah,
if Team Lithuania is sending a team to the World Cup, HubSpot World Cup, you're going. You're representing
yeah,
Lithuania. You're the
I
you're
would
the
think
guy.
so.
Yes.
I would be one of those. I would be one of the candidates. Yeah.
Yeah, Deep Solutions would be the representative from Lithuania for the HubSpot World Cup. That's all that matters for now, right?
Certainly. Maybe from whole Baltics though, even, even
Maybe
aim bigger.
maybe that's up for debate. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of other talking heads that will
Yeah.
come in and talk about it, but for Lithuania for sure, Team Lithuania, you're wearing the flag. That's
All
a good
right.
thing. All right, so Vlad, what is your biggest mistake?
Okay. Well, I thought about this question because you said you would ask me. And to be honest, I'm not sure. Maybe I'm right now in the middle of one of the biggest mistakes that I'm doing. So we'll yet to see. If I have to answer something, that would be probably in the beginning of my career. It's not one event mistake, but it's rather a mindset that had to get switched. And that mindset was listening too much to what customer wants. And instead of what I try to do now, rather instead of listening to what he wants, I try to understand what's his actual problem is and what is he trying to solve, and then help him to solve it. And it could be two different things, because sometimes client says, I want this and this and that, but then you ask me why. You ask him why, and then it reveals that what he wants doesn't solve the problem what he tries to solve. So I guess that would be my answer.
Okay, so Vlad, are you saying that in your experience, your biggest mistake is saying that the customer is always right?
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah.
So the,
Oh,
so the
listen.
cus-
Yeah.
so the customer is wrong sometimes. Give me an example, or tell me sometimes when the customer was dead wrong and you thought they were right, and how you came to that as a mistake.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna tell you one situation which, after which I decided to actually start to listen to my gut rather than listen too much to the customer. So there was a client. It's a rather small company, and they had an interesting setup. So it was they are selling some psychological assessments to
Okay.
kids, stuff like this. So the HubSpot setup had to be rather complex, and I had to be creative in terms of creating all different objects and stuff like this. So in that with that client, throughout the project, there were moments where I felt, okay, we should not be doing this, and I would tell this, but I was not pushing enough. I was not pushy enough to actually, or let's say I was not assertive enough to say, okay, that's why we shouldn't go this way, we should go that way. I would just say, I think we shouldn't do this. And they say, yeah, no, let's do it this way. And then I would do it. Eventually, I ended up with unhappy client who was saying to me, okay, why we cannot do a
Yeah.
certain thing, right? For example, why we cannot see a certain report. And that was the click moment. And I wanted to say, I told you before, but I realized it's not gonna work. I mean, that's not how it works
After the fact, no,
after everything is done, right?
it doesn't
So
work.
that was the moment.
Okay, so you're basically, it's like you're trying to be nice, right? You were saying, I think we can do it this way, and they
Yeah.
said, yeah, but no, and that got you into some trouble because maybe it's funny how that works, right? We always feel like we want to be kind of nice with the customer. We don't want to make them
Yeah.
upset because if they get upset, they cancel and all that kind of stuff. At the same time, though, when you go to the doctor and you say I have a pain in my head, and someone says, "Well, God forbid you have a brain tumor," they don't say, "I think you might have a little bit of a brain tumor." They just
Yeah.
say, "You know what? You have a brain tumor. And it's very very
Yeah.
bad. You got to." They tell you that really really straight, and I feel like maybe as marketers, it's interesting. We have that problem, right? Well, maybe like we do this a little bit. So how did you? So I'm guessing that things didn't end well with that customer. And then would you do differently now in that particular case?
Yeah, it also takes time and experience, right? You have to build that confidence. So at that moment, I think I was behaving the way I could have, to the best of my ability, and that lesson was just like a trigger point that I remembered very clearly, that after this I want to start doing things differently. But before that, I had to build that confidence and understanding of, you know what is right and what is wrong. So essentially, right now, when I hear something that I feel and I know from experience that is a mistake, I tell it right away. If I'm not sure, because you can't know everything, right? If I'm not sure, if I'm 50-50, I am trying to lay out and think together with customer everything, and then maybe postpone the decision, sleep on this, and then come back to this. But then I never work on decisions that I disagree with, like, fully. Like, if
Mm,
I disagree that this should be done, we need to find a compromise. Otherwise, I don't do this, or we don't work together, because I don't do things that don't make sense to me. So I think that's my approach right now. And clients actually like it. They like to be led. That's the thing. People, I think it's related to maybe various fields, not only consulting, not only HubSpot implementation, but even sales or anything like that. People like to be led by competent person. It's easier. Like, if you feel that you're in competent hands, that the things that you would be advised would lead to the outcomes that you need, people feel good about it, and they actually admire you and they appreciate such approach even more. So that's, yeah. What was the question? Did I answer it?
yeah, no, no, you did. And like, I would say that it's like it sounds like what you're saying is you need to show confidence in yourself and that you know what you're talking about so that the client feels warm, feels okay, this
Yep.
person knows what they're doing and things like that. So
Yep.
how do you do that? Like how do you show confidence? What is your thing? Because I can tell you, yeah, most I talk to a lot of marketers in our line of work. A lot of them don't have the confidence to know what they want or know how to communicate. Even like our own team members at our company, they're technical. They usually have to provide a solution of some sort, and sometimes the solution gets lost in
Yeah.
maybe words or gestures that have a lack of confidence, right? So how
Yeah.
do you show confidence?
Yeah. So I think it's about cutting off and being brave enough to simplify things and cut off the nuances. If you are, what I noticed with technical people, and I also have on my team some quite technical people, they are very nuanced. And when they try to think on the solution, they try to think of all the different scenarios, and what is this? What if that? And then that complicates the whole picture, and then it just becomes very hard to make decision. And they are right, because they are thinking about so many things. But I think the trick here is to identify what are the first principles here, right? What are the things that are not going to be changing? What are the, or if it's not about first principles, then what are the most influential points that we need to make the decision first, so that the whole thing would make sense and would start to work, and then you go from there. And it comes with experience, of course. Like, any type of person, I think not every type of person is good for every type of job, right?
Mm.
That's obvious. And for some cases, for some jobs, you need to be nuanced, you need to be thinking about all of those details. But then if we come about, when it comes to consulting, or let's say coming up with a certain setup on HubSpot, you have to make compromises, and you gotta pick the right things where to make compromises, if there is. And the way you do it, basically by analyzing what are the first principles and what are the points of highest influence that should work, so that the whole setup would work.
Okay, so you said something interesting there. Now, do you think that like the customers actually know what they want when they talk to you? I mean, do you feel like they know, or are they more nuanced than what you expect? Typically, like I mean, your customers do they know? Okay, Vlad, I want to do this, and that's it, or do they say something
Yeah.
very general like Vlad, I want to get more out of HubSpot? What do they
Yeah.
typically say?
Well, there are both cases, of course. Some people come and they have like a list, or let's say like a brief that
Mhm.
has, I want to build this many properties. These are the properties that I want to build. This is the type of properties that I want to
Very
build. This is
nuanced.
the
Yeah.
pipeline that I want to do. This is the workflows that I want to build. And we never work with such briefs. And the first message that I reply to them, I tell them, and it depends, of course, from whom it comes. But
Yeah.
if it's not a professional RevOps HubSpot expert or like the person who does it on
Mhm.
the daily thing, who gives us this, I say, okay, that's a great input. We will talk through this to understand your actual needs, what you're trying to achieve with all of this. And then we
Okay.
will tell you whether that works or not. Sometimes clients come and they say, okay, we want to have visibility in terms of our, let's say, sales team performance. That's a better situation. However, it's also not as straightforward because they say, build for us reports. And then you say, okay, what is the report? Report is visualization of data that is on your portal, right? So let's first look into if you have this data in the first place so
Yeah.
that we can tell you whether we can build it or not. And most of the time through conversation and through those pointers, those inputs that they give you, we use them as pointers to understand what is their real need and what's the real problem that they try to solve. And then we tell them how to use HubSpot to actually achieve those things.
Okay. So you like, so in both those scenarios, you like the one who is a bit more general but more strategic, and that you can kind of drill down with, versus the
Yep.
one who is already drilled down and you have to dig yourself out of their details. You prefer
Yeah.
to build it. Okay. And I've noticed something. We've been talking for a little while here. You've mentioned twice that there are customers that you won't take. So a
Yeah.
customer like is one who is like, one who says like, that you're not, that makes you feel unsure of yourself, right? That's one who makes you feel like unsure of yourself, or you're doubting the solution, or whatever. That's one customer you don't take. And the other customer you don't take is one who's very, very technically nuanced, asking you for like this thing, that thing, this thing, kind of getting
Yeah.
into the very, very high level detail and everything, the nitty gritty, as you want to say. And they get
Yeah.
into all these things. And say those two clients, I mean, generally you look at those clients as your red flags, ones that you don't like. So I'm just wondering, like, do you spend a lot of time weeding out customers that you don't want to work with? Do you have that luxury? Do you
Uh,
spend that time doing that, or what?
Well, it depends what you mean by long time, right? It's all relative,
Right.
but we certainly don't just take clients from, let's say, an email and then we just start. It has to be a call. And on the first call, you figure out, okay, where we are, what's the needs. If there are some red or reddish flags,
Yeah.
we go into a deeper investigation and building scoping documents and things like that so that we make sure that the communication is there, because the problem is always, it's not about customer being bad or something, it's about communication and wrong expectations. Because even in the case where I say I don't build things, if I disagree
Mhm.
and if I think it doesn't make sense, I will not build it even if I get paid. I just don't do this. And the reason for that is actually that exact situation where I had, that I told you in the beginning,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Where I had back and forth. I would say, no, that's not a good idea. And they
Right.
said,
Right.
no, no, just build this for us.
Uh-huh.
And then I build it. And then, and then I'm the one who is in blame, right? So that comes from experience. And then the other part is about when a client is very technical and he says, I need to build this property, this workflow. It should be this trigger on this workflow. And then I say, just go build yourself. You need somebody to click buttons. You better find somebody else, because that's not where most of our value lays, right? Because when we set up HubSpot, it's not about us knowing where the buttons are. It's about us knowing how to achieve your goals using HubSpot. And then the buttons, they are all moving. And you know, if somebody is in a HubSpot ecosystem, they know how quickly right now everything changes and moves inside of HubSpot.
Yeah.
So that's not what we are about.
Interesting. So, but now some consultants, especially like in like smaller partners, they would take that job. So, it's easy. I can click these buttons for you, and I can take your Lego booklet. I can build you your Lego set for you. No problem.
Yeah.
What happened in your career that makes you say no to jobs like that?
Yeah, I think this is also, this goes to satisfaction, right? At the end of the day, you want to deliver. It's not only about money, right? At some point you do a few clients. In the beginning it's interesting, it's, oh, okay, I got my first paycheck, second, and then you realize, okay, it is gonna come anyways, and then you're gonna use this money to do whatever you need to do.
Hmm.
But that feeling that you can carry with yourself, that you are useful to this world, that you're actually helping
Mm.
to achieve the goals, to make systems better, you helping something and you bringing value to this client, this is the feeling that is very important for us. And I think it is both emotional to feel good about it, but then it's also a good strategy long term for us as a team to have this as a value rather than just receiving money. Because money, they will come, we know. As long as we have good values in place, the clients will value working with us and they will come back. So that's basically the reason.
So you want to work in situations where you own the outcome, where you say, look, I want to control the inputs because I want to help you get us. I want to be paid for a certain output. What you don't want to do is, it sounds like you don't want to say, I want to be directed on what the inputs are so we can get an output. You'd rather do the building and not the doing necessarily. Is that
Yeah,
kind of
I
right?
mean, yes. So when it comes to input, right? When you say, like, if I receive an input from, let's say, another HubSpot expert who is maybe even more experienced than me or anyone on my team,
Hmm.
and he has such a granular precision request, and then when I look at it, I see, okay, that's no question. If I ask questions, why this, and I get a reply of like, that's why, that's why, that's why, and then I say, no, you know the stuff, yeah, that makes sense, we will build like this, and we will learn from working with such a person, right? But that's very rare. I think I had only one collaboration like this where we worked with it's not an agency, it's well, it's kind of an agency, but there is a guy who is really experienced, like really really knows his stuff, and we were helping him on his client. And through that project, the main goal was to learn his process, to communicate through things and build it, and then he would make the decisions and tell us the final decisions, but we would always know the reason and learn from those so we can deliver better results for our clients.
Got it. Got it. So you do take on those things sometimes when there's an opportunity to grow, to learn,
Yeah.
especially. But most of the time, you're the doctor in the room, right? You're the one
Yeah.
who's diagnosing a problem and providing a solution to the problem.
Yeah, that's
You
exactly.
you don't want a patient who comes in and says, "Prescribe me this medication so I can take it
Yeah,
myself."
exactly, exactly. That's a good way to put it. Yeah,
Yes. So and do you okay? So let's talk more broadly about the consulting industry, an example, or even the HubSpot consulting industry, whatever example. Do you think that most people work that way, or do you feel like that's something very, very innate in maybe more skilled consultants who have grown from, say, a one doing freelance like you have to, like, growing into your own practice and having your own team and all that kind of stuff?
yeah. No, so from my experience, of course, this is limited to
Of
just what I
course.
see and with what I communicated, right? But
Sure.
I see there are three types of well, not consultants, but rather three types of agencies or freelancers that you can meet. The first type is the button clickers, like
Okay.
who either need or only work with it, or they either need it or that's the only way. Sorry, it's either the only way they can work with it, or they are totally fine working with it. Is button clickers. So you just give them a very clear list of like specific stuff what to do, and then they just do it for you. That's level one.
Hmm.
Level two is somebody who actually consults and can explain and prescribe as a doctor, right? Who takes a patient, understands what's the problem, and prescribes the right medicine. But then level three, in my experience, is not just one doctor. It's rather a small clinic which has a lot of equipment and that has maybe a couple of specialists. So instead of one doctor diagnosing and doing things, you have a team of doctors. And in case of HubSpot, that would be when a client comes to us and we have to set up HubSpot is almost never a tool in a vacuum. There are other tools. You need to use Clay for data enrichment. You need to hook up maybe some integrations for the outbound. You need to hook up integrations for the project management after the deal was closed won. And that it's like a whole ecosystem, right?
Mhm.
And in our team, we are all more or less universal. So we understand the problem, we try to solve, and then we try to, some people know a little more about API, other people had experience with that, but in general, we all know everything. Now, the third level teams, they have very narrowly but deeply specialized specialists for different things. For example, when you do APIs, when you need to connect other tools to HubSpot, you have a guy who is doing only APIs, and of course, he's going to be much more experienced than a generalist who knows how to do API, but maybe not such nuances. And
Right.
then so on and so forth, right? So that would be the third level when you have a bigger team, let's say several advanced specialists who tell you specific things about specific problems within one project. That, yeah, so that's what I see.
And where would you put deep solutions as you're at level 3 and you're trying to stay there, or those sorts
We
of
are
things?
at level 2.
You're level
We
2.
we
Okay.
don't have specialists for narrow areas, such as, for
Okay.
example, having a specialist only for setting up APIs. No, we don't have it. We are at level 2, where we have general understanding of most of the things, and some of our team members are better at one or another thing, but in general we are setting them. But then it's also depends on projects, right? Most of our projects that we take, they don't require such depth, because
Got
the
it.
clients that we work with, usually those are sales teams from 5 to 15 people, maybe 20
Okay.
people. So it's not large, not huge sales teams. And in their case, you need specialization, you need to be effective, but most of the stuff we can solve. Now, if we talk about some huge projects where small things make huge difference, that's where those team come in of level 3. We are not there yet.
Okay. And do you feel like it's like a step it's like a stepping stone for consultants to go from level 1 to level 2 to level 3, or do you feel that sometimes it's more like people who are they just totally independent things, like these are all level 1s, they'll always be level 1s, these are level 3s, they'll always be level 3s, these are level 2s, always be level 2s? Like, are
Yeah,
you trying to get to level 3, or are you happy with level 2 because it's easier to manage, maybe less headaches, that kind of stuff? What's your take?
yeah. Well, if we take agency as a entity, right? HubSpot implementation agency, those levels would be the stepping stones, right? So
Okay.
you start from clicking buttons, then you go to level 2 and level 3. Now, within those agencies, people, how they feel and how they want to be, maybe for some people it's more comfortable to stay within level 2, and maybe for me as an employee, let's imagine,
Mm.
of a certain agency, I would prefer only work in level 2 agencies, right? And there are some specialists who would prefer to work only in level 3, or maybe there are some who work in level 1 only, but that's probably not the case. Most of the time clicking buttons is not, it's not something that, yeah. But yeah, so as far as an agency concerned, those are stepping stones. And if we think about agency as a entity, those would be the progression levels. As far as a person concerned, he, if he likes to be generalist, it's totally fine. He can be a great generalist and can enjoy being it, being great at being it. That's also needed on the market.
Yeah. Okay. So, is your goal to become like a level 3 then, like the one that you're saying, where you have all of the different skills internally, or is it more to stay in the level 2, like you're saying, and continue to build on that? What's specifically for you guys?
Yeah, no, we will. Yeah, for an agency, a KPI in my head is how, what are the hardest problems that you can solve within your domain, and that's the KPI that we are measuring us against. If we're not talking about some specific numbers, but like
Yeah.
some high level thing. And of course, like going into level 3 increases the level of the problems that you can be working with. The projects are more interesting in because they are more nuanced. So certainly going for level 3, but not forcing anything. Step by step, as things progress, we just naturally evolve and into that.
So when you say like your KPI is what's the biggest problem that you can solve, what's the most complicated things you can solve, how do you measure that? Like what and tell me like what is the biggest problem that you have solved in a in a career so far?
Yeah, what's the most complex
Yeah,
setup that your team can handle to make, right? So I'm not gonna go now into very complicated technical details because I think it's just boring. But in general, the way you would think about it is you would need to have a person on your team senior enough, and this is actually the way the hardest problem that you can solve is measured by the most senior person that you have on your team. And it could be that, and there are some agencies that I think work like this. So you have an agency, you have, let's say, there 20 or even 30 people, and then there is one person who is really senior, who most of the time does almost nothing. But once a month, when there is a problem where nobody on the team can solve and they are just breaking their heads, he just comes in and solves it.
solve it.
And sits there simply so that they can take such projects on them. So that's basically how you would understand that what's the hardest problem that you can solve is basically the smartest or the most senior person on your team, what's his ability, and that's how you all understand where's your limit.
That makes sense. Yeah, I mean, that's a good way to measure it, I guess. And your goal is to find those problems and try and solve those. So always try to reach a bit more than what is currently possible. I'm guessing is that a fair?
Yeah, little by little, it's through people, right? So the goal is to so that every next person that you get is actually ideally stronger, so makes the whole setup stronger. And that's how you go there step by step. And basically in every next, I want that eventually I would be in my team, if not the least knowledgeable, but on not in top percentage of knowledgeable people, right? Then I will say, okay, I did successfully. Most of my team knows better than me the
That's
stuff
good.
that we need to be doing, and that would be for me a success metric that I will say, okay, I'm happy, I'm doing well.
That's a good one. And
Yeah.
so when are times, let's go back to the mistake that you made at the beginning. When are times when you have maybe has that ever gone wrong for you where you've thought, okay, I'm gonna trust my instinct. This customer doesn't really they kind of know what they're talking about, but I have the solution in my head, which is different than the one that they're asking for based on me understanding the need of it. Have you ever been have you ever been wrong in that situation so far where you came up with something and it
Yeah.
we wanted to push something to be done a certain way and it didn't end up working out well?
Not with a customer, not that I can remember of, right? Our
Okay.
memory is a tricky thing, right?
Yeah,
It's
it's selective
picking
sometimes.
stuff, right? So
Yeah.
two things. First of all, I always try to make those decisions not emotional. So it should not be my ego saying, I know better, let's do it this way, but be rational about it. So far it worked, not that I can remember where it didn't. Now, but what we did have is when we have internally arguments with my teammate, for example, how we should go about it, about certain problem and solution for it. And then we would discuss, and then I would push on my solution. And sometimes it was not the best. But this is so far, at least, there was nothing when we told client do something differently. And because of that, we had an issue. There wasn't.
Okay. And is it when what's it like when you're having a discussion or a back and forth internally on the team? Is it like, I mean, are you usually the smartest guy on the team because you're the owner, the founder, or are there times when you are wrong and your team members actually have a better solution than the one that you proposed?
There are times when team spots it, and as long as they give a reason, and I like to think that I understand and I listen, I agree. It's not like I always have it has to be my way, for sure. There are some decisions where I don't participate, even like architecture decisions, which I look back later and then I say, wow, that was cool. I wouldn't have thought doing it like this. and you guys did it and it works really well, and that's the best feeling actually when you get such moments. But all in all, it's about knowing yourself and feeling when you're talking about something, when you're, let's say, discussing a certain solution and you have different opinions. And during this discussion, what I try to do, I try to listen to myself, how I feel about arguing about it. Is it emotional, or, and if I feel there is any emotion like anger or being impatient or just in general any emotion, then I usually, if I spot it, and I try to spot it always, I would just postpone this conversation to later. Because if I, yeah, so it has to be always. And we are humans, right? Sometimes you're just tired, you had a call, somebody annoyed you on the call or
Yeah.
even on the road to work, and then you bringing this into conversation about some setup, and it's unrelated emotion makes you disagree with it. And the trick is to be able to catch this emotion and understand it's not about the argument that you feel, it's about something else going on in your life, and then you gotta, pause and do it later.
What if sometimes you can't pause? What if it's something that needs to be done like now on a deadline? You run an agency. You know how it is. Everything is fast, 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 fast. How do you handle
Usually, you can pause for at least half an hour, and that could be enough. We are not, luckily, we are just HubSpot agency. We are not doctors, right? For doctors, it would be harder. Sometimes you have to make decision every second.
it?
For us, it's never, almost never like this. So at least half an hour, 1 hour, you can take a break always. That's what you go for.
So what do you do then? How do you? So let's say, for example, you're coming into the office and somebody gets into a fight with you on the road. They say something bad about your goatee,
Yeah.
and you don't like it, and you don't like it. And then what do you do now? Like you have this client who's telling you what to do, and you don't work that way. How do you
Yeah.
handle that? What do you do, Glenn?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's easy. You just go for a walk.
You walk,
Like,
okay.
the most important first step is to catch yourself and realize that that's what's going on with you. And as soon as you have it, you just go for a walk. I would just go for a walk, make a walk, or just sit and wait, and then it passes. That's it.
And
Because everything passes. Just need to give it a time.
and like, what if how long? What if it takes more than half an hour? What if you're just really ticked off? I mean, what do you do? I mean, a walk. You're walking. All you're doing is thinking about this thing. I can't believe this guy said that. I can't believe they said this. Why would they say it? How could they? How dare they? Don't they
Yeah.
realize this is what means a lot to me? And you're thinking about it
Yeah.
while you're in the walk, right? You're by yourself. Maybe there's
Yeah.
no music, no phone, just kind of walking off the grid. How when do you realize when do you come back? Is it half an hour? Is it 20
The,
minutes?
the interesting thing is that, at least for me, it works this way. The moment when you catch it, you are already half done with it. Because even if it didn't pass through fully in the half an hour or 15 minutes that you took a break in between it, you are already aware that this is going on. And if you have to proceed right away,
Mhm.
even though it didn't pass, you are aware that this is something what's going on. So that is already helping it, I would say 80-90%, to not let this emotion drive the conversation, at least, right? It does influence it a little bit, but it doesn't drive it. And that's enough.
That makes sense. Where did you learn that? I mean, where did you learn this? Is it something that you picked up, or is it?
Yeah. Well, it's it's a combination of things, right? In general, it's about, I think, anywhere, any business that you work, and for that matter, any career, when you go through career, when you go through changes, and business is quite a challenging career because there is many things are uncertain, many things are changing, and so on. The only way to grow there is to understand yourself better, and it's just little by little you just starting to pick up things. You observe yourself. One thing that really helped me to make a big step in there is attending a retreat. It's called Vipassana. Have you heard about such retreats?
No, not Vipassana. No, tell me about
Yeah,
it. What is it?
it's an interesting thing. It's basically a retreat. It's worldwide. It started, I believe, in Bangladesh, I think, or in India somewhere. I
Okay.
don't know the exact regions,
Interesting.
but
Okay.
somewhere in that area.
Hmm.
But then now it's worldwide phenomenon, and there are retreats throughout the whole Europe, but I think in the States as well, and maybe in Northern America as well, but throughout the whole Europe. And the retreat, it takes 10 days. So you come there, you sit, you give your phone, you basically have nothing on you, no phones, no books, not even notebook.
Hmm.
And then for 10 days, you live there like a monk. So you first thing, you don't talk to anyone in these 10 days, and then you meditate. So you wake up at
Wow.
4 in the morning. You have a schedule, right? You wake up at 4 in the morning, you meditate till 6, then you eat breakfast, then you meditate again, then you rest, then you meditate, and you live like a monk, like Buddhist monk, for
Uh-huh.
10 days.
Uh-huh.
And you learn this teaching. It's called Vipassana. I think it's a type of meditation that comes from Buddhism. But there they teach you how to listen to yourself. It helps to basically be more aware of who you are, what's going on, how you feel, and so on. So it's like a tool that helps you to achieve this. So I attended once, and I think that gave me a really big jump in terms of in terms of my level of awareness, because the whole point is just to catch this thing. And when once you catch it, once you're aware, then it's easier. Then you just know, okay, that's emotion, it has to pass, and it does pass. It always, it's almost never, it's like, stays with you forever. It's just the matter of time.
And you attended this retreat for like 10 days, for one day? How did it?
No, 10 days, yeah.
10
So you
days.
come, yeah. Yeah, it's an experience. Like, you don't talk to anyone. You are in the group of people, but you take this golden silence rule, right? You don't talk to anyone. You don't even look in the eyes to anyone. And you meditate about 10 hours a day. You wake up at 4 in the morning. You meditate all day. You eat 2 times per day, only vegetarian food. And in the evening, you listen to the teaching of the theory of what you're doing. And that's, you go in this basically way for 10 days. You do get quite a lot of insights about yourself, about what you can do, what you cannot
Interesting.
do, what are your thoughts in your head. Some people get quite some spiritual experiences, right? They get some visions. I heard people like during meditation starting to cry. Some people then tell, because you can talk in the evening with like a teacher or tutor, and you can come to the hall. You cannot talk to anyone else, but you can come and listen, and you can come and ask your questions. So you listen what others are asking, and they would tell, things come in there, they feel through the body some emotions from the past and stuff like this. But for me, it was less, maybe it was a little bit of a spiritual situation, but more of a time with myself, time meditating, listening to who I am, and just, recharging, basically resetting your dopamine receptors. Yeah. And if, yeah, you should, if you are interested in stuff like this, I can certainly share with you some links to read. Maybe you would want to attend that one day. Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be. I mean, that'd be interesting. I feel like I go crazy 10 days without family and like people to talk to, and like
Yeah.
the emails and everything.
You and you. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it.
No, no, but it sounds like it'd be very, very valuable. So I mean, yeah, I mean, I'd be interested in seeing more of that for sure. So Vlad,
Yeah.
where can people learn more about you and Deep Solutions and all this kind of stuff?
Yeah, few things. Well, of course, on LinkedIn, you can just find us. Find me on LinkedIn, Vladislav German. Connect with me. Would be happy to chat about the projects, or about just some collaboration or interesting topics, just like we discussed today, or about Vipassana for that matter. And also another thing, together with my business partner, we started Instagram channel, but then we also post on YouTube, where we talk about sales techniques, sales tools, sales automation. We are not talking there specifically about HubSpot, although HubSpot from time to time appears because there is so much of it in our lives.
Use, yeah.
And so the channel is called The Sales Corner. So
Okay.
if you can leave links in the
Yeah.
description,
Cool. Yeah.
I'm gonna share with you. So if people are interested to listen to what we're talking, we would be happy. So if you follow and support us there, that would be the way.
Well, Vlad, I can tell you, just between you and I and my mom and dad, who are the only people who listen to this thing, probably, it, it has been a huge pleasure to talk to the greatest Lithuanian HubSpot consultant of all time today. Thanks for
Thank
coming
you.
on. It's been a
Thank
lot
you
of
very
fun.
much.
I learned a lot. I loved your journey to learning about how the customer was not always right and how you trust your instincts a lot. And of course, Vipassana was just icing on the cake. So thanks for coming on.
Thank you very much for inviting. It was my pleasure.
Yeah. So this has been another episode of RevOps 500. Everybody, thanks for listening.